Welcome, wonderful people. This is Mr. Ndabezita once again, and this time we are on our second tutorial. Now, you remember what I said? I said unto you that we are going to take the information that we had in the previous tutorial, store this information on the database, a local host which is called memp, and we're going to populate this memp database with some information of the individuals from the previous tutorial, and try to use C# in order to have access to the information that is stored on MySQL that runs online on a local host. Now, the first thing that you need to do, you need to go to this website memp and memp pro. If you type, because I have already downloaded this is what it will show. You just click on this and it will take you directly into this downloads memp and memp pro. And when you are confronted with the screen here, all you have to do is to go down, choose whether you're using Mac or Windows, and begin to make the download, and it will download memp and memp pro. As you can see, I've already made the download, so I'm going to cancel this. Now, the second thing, when this is done, all you need to do is to install your memp. You will install this. Once you are done, you will be confronted with these two. You will see memp pro and you will see memp. We're going to use this one. It's more like a community version of memp, right? And then you're going to double tap on this to open up memp so that we can try and configure some of the databases that we will need. This is the first step of what needs to transpire. So let's just wait for a few minutes for this to open up. You need to have an internet connection running on your PC in order to work with this, because we are trying to set up a local host that runs online. Very important that you have an internet connection connected on your PC or on your laptop or on your Mac or whatever the device that you are using. So let me just wait for this to open up. Let me just try to click once again, and then from there we will see exactly how we are going to work on this. It's taking quite some time. Alright, let me just pause the tutorial, wait for this to open up so that we can work on this. Alright, well, here we are. It is very important, if it doesn't run when you double click on this, please right click and run memp as an administrator. This might solve the problem. You need to ensure that you have those two green dots on the Apache server and MySQL server. We're going to use MySQL server for this. And then the first thing that you need to do when this opens up, please let me show you this so that you understand what is happening here. This is how it will look like the first time when you open up this. You need to press on the start servers, right? You need to ensure that you have also a green on MySQL server. Very good. And then you come here, you say open web start page, and when you open up, this is the screen that you have. You don't have to stress yourself about many of the things. Just come to tools and go to my PHP my admin, and when you are there, this is what you will be confronted with. Very, very important. This is what you will be confronted with. Now, we want to create our first database and populate this database with the information of the individuals that we had in the previous tutorial. So you come here to new. What are you trying to do here? You are trying to create a new database. Very, very important. Right, and then when you are there, the first thing that you need to do here is to create your database. Okay, that's fine. Let's just call this database as let's just say family information. So let's say this is family information. Just leave this as it is and go click on create, and then it will create the database. Now it is requesting for a name. Now I think the name that we can use here is family details. Very good. And the number of columns that we need, right? Remember, we have the ID, we have the name, we have the surname, we have the cell numbers, and the field of study of these individuals. So let's just have 5 columns, and then you press on go. You just press on ignore all, you go all the way up, and this is what you will be confronted with. We have these columns that we have created. Now we need to give in the name. The first one, let's make this an ID, because it will act as a primary key. Remember, a primary key, it's a unique number that identifies the information in each object in simple terms. So secondly, we will have the name, we will have the surname, we will have the age and the cell numbers, because I have already done this during practice. Right, ID, because it's a number 1 2 3 4 5, which will be incremented automatically. We can use an int for that. Just to give you a brief summary of how this works, an int, as you can see, it ranges from -2.147 to +2.147. so it is a container enough to store this ID that we have. And then we have name, and then for name we chose this is int. For name we chose a voucher, because it allows 0 to 65 and so on. So you can see that the effective maximum length is subject to the maximum row size. So a name will be accommodated between 0 and 65, 535. So voucher will be fine. And then the surname, I will also recommend a voucher. The age will be int, of course. But for the cell number, let me see what I can use for that. Let me just try to see this one. The maximum number of digits is 65, default is 10. This is very good because I have 10 digits in my cell numbers. So this one, okay, the length 200 is fine, the name 1000, surname 1000 is fine, age 100 is good, and cell numbers 20 is also fine. Leave the default, the collation, the attributes, the null index as they are, and you are done. Now what you need to do is to just save this. You save this, and we have our database. Right, let me just press on browse. Okay, this is very good. Okay, let me just go to search and see what we have. Okay, this is fine. Let's go to insert, because we need to do what? We need to insert the details of every object, every member that we have. But before we can do that, I want us to come here on browse. And what is it that I want? Okay, let me just go to the structure, ignore all, let me go all the way up. This is what I wanted inside of the structure. Now there's something that I want us to change here, because we said that ID will be uniquely identifying each object in the database. So it is the only one that will be updated automatically, because there's no way that you can share an ID with someone else. Remember, for object 1 ID is 1, object 2 ID is 2. So I cannot make name a primary key, because you can have the same name as much as the same surname, age and cell numbers with another person. So I'm making ID a primary key because it will be unique. Uniqueness. Right, so we're just going to press on change, because we want to change this and make it a primary key. Right, let me just go up. Very good. So I'm going to press on this to show that it is a unique. Okay, let me just press on save, and we will go back to the structures and see if everything has been saved well. So let me just go to the structure, and there it is. Ignore all. Let's just go up. There it is. It's a primary key. We will not have to insert this whenever we provide the information of every object there is in the database. This will be done automatically for us, but we will see as we proceed in this. Right, let's go to insert. Now the first individual is the eldest sister in our family, and the name is Makosa Zana. I'm just going to use the straw man here, just as it appears on your identity document with all caps. Okay, we will discuss straw man some other time when we deal with theological doctrine. So let's go to the surname. The surname is the same. This is Ndabezita. The age of my sister, it's 35. Some of the details are just appearing here. I'm just going to select from that, and you press on go. And can you see ID was automatically updated as 1 because it's an int. Very good. It starts from 1 going upwards. I know you will say int is negative and positive with 0 as the middleman, but it just updates this from ID 1 2 3 4 5 and so on. So this is the first record that we have. Let's go to the second one. That's more Ndabezita. I papa fanzo, I papa fanisto, I sikechekeche molotwa. Right, let me not do this. Let me just do this. Very good. Fanyani Samuel. And the surname, I am the great Ndabezita. The age, I papa fanzo. Yeah, you have grown, man. Yeah, man. These are the numbers, and we just press on go, and we have the second record in place. Let's keep on inserting the information. So the second one is Lucky Archibald. The surname is Ndabezita, my father. Alright, the guy is just 25. I forgot to include the profession, but that's fine. The cell numbers, I'm just going to pick randomly from these ones. Press on go, and we are fine. Let's insert the last 2 records. That's Zanele Jeanette. I don't know whether the spelling is correct. I don't even care. Ndabezita. The age is just 20, and the cell numbers, randomly picking this one, and we press on go. And there's just one last member of the family, that's Bokang. The surname is the same. The age, he's just 7 years old, and fortunately he has a cell phone. And these are the records that we have. So let's just go to browse. We have 5 objects. These are the ID, the name, the surname, the age, and the cell numbers. Okay, this is fine. Now that we have a database in PHP my admin, we just need to access this in a different way that I will show you as we proceed in this lecture. Now that we are fine in this, let's just go to memp here, just click on the preferences so that I can show you some stuff. It is very important to know that memp has the username and the password is root for username and root for the password. And one thing that you need to know, what else did I want to say about memp? We just want to know the port number, the name of the database, so that we can work on this. While it is still loading, trying to get some air, let's go to Visual Studio. Let's go to Visual Studio, and this time we're going to do things a little bit different. Why? Because we now have a database set up in phpMyAdmin, and we need to do what? We need to use Visual Studio to take the information online on the database and show this on the data grid view. This is the whole aim of this lecture that we are trying to make here. So it is very important that we try to understand that there may be some of the mistakes that we do and learn from those mistakes, so that at the end of the day we are not computers. We are trying to understand exactly what transpires. Right. The first thing that I'm going to do when I'm confronted with this interface is to go to File, and I'm going to create a new project. And let's just wait for it to load up before we can even go and write something inside of this. It takes a little bit more time to load. I don't know why, but I know just in a few seconds it will be fine. So let's just see what is happening here. Okay, you already know we're going to pick C#, Windows, Desktop, or you can just come click here, double click on Windows Form App. And you remember there are 2 things that we need from this. So the first thing, we need to give the name of the project. I'm going to call to say my SQL database. This would be the name. I'm not going to store this in the repository. I want to use the desktop so that it is easy for me to access this folder. Right, it will be on the desktop. Just leave many of the things the way in which they are, and it will use the current .NET framework, which is 8, or is it 8.1, something like that. Yeah, 8.0, and we just click on create, and it will create a project for us. This is something that we have already dealt with in the previous tutorial, so I know that you understand exactly what transpires. We're just waiting for this to load up, and then when it is done, we can begin working in this. Some of the things that I'm going to say in this is exactly what we said in the previous tutorial, just using the different weddings and configurations in order to add more to your understanding. But we're not going to do exactly the same thing, because you saw that the database is running on a different machine, MySQL, and we have a Visual Studio in another machine on our computer. So we need to find a way to make the connection so that we can have access to the information that will be displayed on the data grid view. So this is something very important to follow along, something very important for us, both me and you, to try and understand and make sense to this as much as we can. Very important. No one is 100% perfect. but we have at least I can say 90% above of the understanding of exactly what really happens in here. But we will see, wonderful people, we will see. All I want to do in these lectures is for us to both understand how MySQL works. This is all what we are trying to understand. So it's taking a little bit longer. Let me just pause the tutorial, wait for this. Oh, there it is. I don't know why we're having this. Let me just close this. Very good. So waiting for the IntelliSense to finish initializing, but it says we can continue doing whatever that we want while we wait for this, and that is exactly what I want us to do. Now let's just click on view and we go to the solution explorer so that we can see some of the information in our project. Now when we are here, the first thing that I want us to do is to create a class. Remember previously we had two classes. We're going to have the very same two classes in this, but with some of the information being omitted because the database has already been set up in PHP my admin. So let's just have a class. I don't know the names that we used previously, but we obviously going to use different names for this one so that we can work on this. We can honestly work on this. Okay. Right, so here we are, and what we want to do from here is to just give the name to this class. I'm going to call this class let me just call this family properties, because that's exactly what we're going to have here. We're going to create the properties as a base of showing the information that each object should have, just as we have in the database. We have the ID, the name, the surname, the age, the cell numbers, and so on. It has to match with exactly that which we have on the database. Let me just take you through that. So it's the ID, the name, the surname, the age, and the cell numbers of these individuals. So it will just load up the class, and then we can begin working inside of that class. Okay, here is our class. The first thing that I want to do when I create a class that I need to have access to in other classes is to ensure that I create that class as a public. Sorry. So the class will be public. Guys, please forgive me, my computer is freezing. It does this most of the time when you open up Camtasia and Visual Studio at the same time. These two apps consume a lot of memory and processing. So let me just make this public. Very good. So this is a public class, family properties, and this is exactly what we're going to have here. So we're just going to say prop, press on the double tap so that it can auto complete this for us, and then from there we just copy the first line into, I think, 5 as I saw in the database, but we will see. So the first property that we will have is a public one of type int, and we know the name will be an ID, okay, with both a get and a set. So Control C, Control V. I don't know how many times I will paste, maybe 5 times, maybe 6. I think we have a 5 fields also in the database. So the second one will be of type string, and that will be the name, if I remember. The second one will also be of type string, and it is the surname. And let me just see the other one, age and cell numbers. So age, I know it's an int, and that is the age, and we have cell numbers, so long will be fine, and we have cell numbers. Let me just check. Yes, this is what we have. So these ones, I can just get rid of them. This is all what we need inside of this class. It has to be public. It's a class, you give it a name, and you populate with the properties that you should have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 properties, and they match exactly with what we have in PHP My Admin. Very important. Now let's just go to the form very quickly. Go to view, just say toolbox, and then once we have this toolbox, you remember all we need is a button and a data grid view. So all we need is a button, and we also need a data grid view. Okay, let me just say data grid view. Right, I can just take this a little bit to the side here. Try to enlarge it a bit. Go to the properties of the button and just change the text there. Just to say, okay, the text is load data. Okay, so this is what it should do. Whenever we press on the button, all it needs to do is to load the data and display that data on the data grid view. Right, so we are fine. We are very, very fine. So let me just go back here. When it is done, let's now go and create the second class. So we're going to add a class. what will be the name of this class? Well, I think the class, we can just call this let me think, because the function of this class is to create a list of the family members. So we can say family, we can just say family DAO. This is this is a family data access object. This is exactly what it will do. So the first thing is to make this public, okay, and then the first thing that I need to do when I am outside of this class is to create, okay, let me not go there first. Let's go and have a public list, of type family properties. So we're going to have our family properties, and we just going to use one of the names that are recommended. As you can see, these are the suggested names. You can just pick any that you want. So let me just call this get family properties. Okay, this is very good, and I'm going to reserve memory for this, but for now I know that there's nothing inside of this, so I'm creating a public list of type family properties, giving it a name and reserving memory for that. This is just a basic thing that we even did in the previous tutorial. So nothing new is happening here. This is something that we already know, something that we already understand, right? Okay, this is fine. We do not have a problem with this. Now the second question is, what do we do from here? What is it that we need to do from here? Right, you remember what we did? We went to the button here, we double click on the button, and what we did was to have some information inside there. If you still remember what we did, right? So the first thing that I think we should do when we click the button there is to do what? It's okay, let's try to create an object of this data access object. So when we are inside here, the first thing that we need to do is to say, okay, family DAO, there it is, and let's just give it a name, family DAO equals new family DAO. Why am I doing this? Now remember, I'm creating an object instance. Why? Because I want to have access to this field. I'm going to use this field in order to do whatever that needs to transpire, and you will see exactly what that is. So this is the first thing that we are going to do. Now when I click the button here, I'm no longer going to create another object of family properties and then I populate ID is this. No, I already have that information on the database. That's why I am omitting this step. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm not going to say enter family properties, give it a name, family properties equals new family properties. I'm no longer going to do this and say ID equals this and so on. No, I'm not going to do this because this information is already there on the database, remember. So I'm not going to do that. So let me just get rid of this. I don't need to do that. Now I think the first thing that I should do is to create, remember when we are in here, all we needed to do there was to create a binding source. So remember we said binding source I'm just going to call it a binding source. You remember equals new binding source. So I'm creating an instance of a binding source. You remember this is exactly what we did. And then from there, what is it that we need to do? What is it that we need to do when we are in there? Right. Now the question is, how do we connect to a database? Now the first thing to connect into a database, and where does the connection takes place? This is where the information needs to be fetched from, because this class contains a list of family properties. So when I click on the button, it has to take the information from here. This is very important for you to understand. Now, where is that? I'm looking for something here. When I click on this button, it needs to fetch information from here. So this is where the connection needs to be made. Right, now to connect into any database, we need the username, we need the password, we need the data source, and we need the port number. So the username and the password may be a combination of numbers and letters, or maybe the username is just numbers and the password has to contain some numbers. So I need to find a container that is able to hold both numbers and alphabets at the same time, and for me the string is the perfect one. So I'm going to declare a string, and this container of type string, I will call this a string connection. Okay, and inside of this string, the first thing I need to provide is the data source. You need to provide the data source to say, okay, the data is on my computer on a local host. So this is a data source. Let's just go and check. There it is, local host, and this is the name of the database. Let me just show you this. The database is family information. Where is it? Yes, there it is. Family information. That is the name of the database. There it is, DB family information, and it is running on a local host. So we provide the data source. You're saying that, okay, where is the data? The data source is stored on a local host. Terminate with a semicolon. And now you specify the port number 3306. Now where does that comes from? We need to find that information in here. Okay, let me just show you this. When you press on ports, MySQL port, remember we said we're not going to use the Apache but MySQL port, the port number is 3306. So this is where the information comes from, 3306. Done. And then I need to provide the username. I already told you that it is root, and even the password equals root. And now lastly, we need to provide the database name. Database equal. Now let's check. There it is, database family information. So I'm just going to come here and say family information, and I just need to close this. terminate with a semicolon. So this is the string connection. The string connection is going to be used in order to know where the data source is. It is on a local host, the port number, the username, the password, and the name of the database. This is why we need this string connection. Okay, let me just press enter, and then let me just bring this. Okay, let me just close this side, close this, and now let's try and do some work. Now when I'm inside here, the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to create a method. I'm going to create a method that will help me so that when I click on the button, it will invoke this method that will bring me the information of each object and all its attributes that is stored inside of the database. So this is going, because it's going to return objects with their information, so I need to create a public list. So I'm going to have a public list, and a list of what? Of family properties. Family properties. Call this I don't want to confuse things. Family properties, very good. And we are, remember, we are not doing this, we are creating a method here. So let me just call this method get family members. So I'm going to call this get family properties. Very good. Right, remember it is a method. Even the color changes there should assure you that this is a method. And when we hover over here, it will tell you the type family DAO already contains a definition for get family properties. Oh, sorry. So let me just try and use a different name. So let me see this one, public list. Okay, let me change this. Please let me change this and just call this family properties. Please let me just change this. Okay, and then so that this one can work just fine. So when we hover over, it says family DAO.get family properties, not all code paths returns a value. This is very true. So what is it that I want to do in this method? What should be the function of this method? Now remember, this method has to do what? It has to go and bring me the information of every object. Now remember, these are the objects, remember, so I need to reserve the memory for that inside of this method. So remember, they are objects, so I'm going to create also another list, and this is the same list, but this, remember, it's a list of family properties. And I'm just going to call this let me just call this family properties, and I am trying to reserve memory for this. So what I'm doing here, I am instantiating a list. I am instantiating a list so that there is enough memory to store whatsoever many objects there are inside of this list. This is all what I am doing here. Okay, I believe that we are more than fine with this. Now what should be the second thing that I need to do here? Now that I have reserved memory, I need to make a connection. Now remember, this memp, this PHP myadmin is a SQL database. You remember that. So the first thing that I need to do is to try and make a connection to the SQL server. So I'm going to say my SQL connection. MySQL connection, and I'm going to call this just as a connection, and this is equals to new MySQL connection. So this is an instance of MySQL, and you can see that we're having some errors immediately when we do this, and it says the type or namespace MySQL connection could not be found. So what I need from this is a dependency. You press on control and you press on dot, say simultaneously, so, and then it will load some of the suggestions, and then you go and say install package mysql.data, and we want to find and install the latest version, and you press on that and it will do the installation. For you, maybe if this is the first time, it may want to install other additionals, and this is also maybe dependent on maybe you're using i3, i5, i7, i9, or you're just using a normal Acer PC. It may require some of the additionals, so if it does, please allow it to complete all those necessities, and then you can follow along in this tutorial. This is very true, right? So immediately when it has completed installing this, you can see that there was a color change that really happened in this. So this is MySQL connection equals new my there's a typing error here, sorry, MySQL. And when it makes a connection to the SQL server, you need to provide that string connection, because it needs to know, you must pass on one parameter here, which you have declared as a string connection. So here, let me just say connection, so that, okay, string connection. Yes, you need to pass one parameter when you create this constructor. Okay, that is fine, and you need to ensure that all the information that you provided here matches exactly the address where the information is located, or else it will not connect. So we have installed the dependency and we are more than fine with this. Now the second thing that we need to do now is to create an open connection. There it is, just press on the tab and it will auto-complete for you. So now it will open up a connection, that is to say, because you have an internet connection running, you allow it to go online on a local host MySQL, and it will be able to install that. Now let me just show you something here. Let me just close this, view solution explorer. Let me take this to the side, and I just want to show you the dependency that was installed. So you just come here, manage the NuGet packages, and we're just going to see exactly that which we have installed. So installed, that's just one, because that's one dependency that we have installed, and there it is, mysql.data by Oracle. So Oracle owns MySQL. Fine, so we are done with this. Let's carry on. Now we open up a connection. Now once the connection is open, what is it that we are going to do now? When it opens up, it needs to know what needs to transpire when it reaches the address. Now the first thing that we are going to do is to try and bind data. Now very important, I think we have created a binding object. Where was the object? Let me check the binding source. There it is. Right, so I'm going to say binding. It is inside of this button one click. So binding source, an instance dot data source. Very good. And we are going to equate this to family DAO, just as we did in the previous one. Family DAO dot, there's a method inside there. I think the method, it says, let's go and check, get family properties. So dot get family properties. Okay, it's a method that accepts no argument, and then all it does is to open up the connection and whatever that needs to transpire. Okay, is this going to work when I press the button? No. What I need is to take this information, remember, and ensure that the information is on the data grid view. So I'm going to say data grid view 1 dot data source equals family DAO. Where is this? Sorry. Family. Oh. Let's just go and see family DAO dot. Is this what we need to do? Is this what we need to do? No, I don't think so. What we need to do when we are in there is just to say, okay, this is equals to binding source. Sorry, this is equals to it is the binding source. So what are we trying to do here? We are saying, okay, binding source dot data source, go inside of family DAO dot get properties. It will invoke this method. This method has a list that is instantiated, taking all the objects, storing that inside of a binding source dot data source. I'm taking that information that is inside of the binding source, and I'm storing that information in the data grid view so that I can see whether the connection will be made or not. Let's see if my coding is correct, if there are no mistakes that we have done. So let's just wait for this and see if things will work. No. Where is the problem? Oh, sorry. Sorry. I forgot to specify the return here. So let me just say return. What is it that we are returning here? We are returning family properties. We are returning an object. This is exactly what we are returning. So please forgive me, I forgot to say that. Let's see if the connection was successful, because this is exactly what we want to check. We're just trying to find out if the connection was indeed successful. Let's just wait for a few sec before it can show the information. Okay, here we are. And let's see what really happens here. So I'm going to press on load data. And when I press load data, it seems like the connection was successful, because here I have the ID, the name, the age, and the cell numbers, but the list is empty because I haven't yet ran a command to specify that at index 1 expect this, 2, 3, and so on. But it looks like the connection was successful. Let me see if it was not successful. Let me just change something here. I'm going to change one thing here. Maybe let me just use a wrong username and let me run this. I want to check whether the connection was indeed successful. Right, let me just try to press the load data. And we have an exception. We immediately have an exception. And look where it is. Here it is. And there is the exception. Let me just close here. And let me close. It says authentication to host localhost for user this using method whatever failed with message access denied for user root. You see, localhost using password yes. So that's where the problem is. The username is wrong, so the connection was not made. So I was correct when I said it was connected successfully. So okay, that's fine. Let's just stop this. We know that everything now is working just fine. Now what we need to do is to specify exactly at what position it should expect. This is exactly what we need to do. Now there is a second step that needs to be done. Now remember, the information is all stored inside of this class. When I press the button, the information needs to be fetched from this. Now once the connection is open, remember the return statement has to always be your last. Please do not forget that. We were taught this in first year second semester. Right, now what we need to do in here is to connect the list to the grid view control, because we saw that it returns an empty list. The information of every object was not printed out. Okay, so now how are we going to do that? How are we going to do that? Right, we are going to define a SQL statement to fetch all these family members. Now how do I do that? You're going to say my SQL command. There it is. Now we're going to say MySQL command, and I'm just going to call this MySQL command equals new. So what am I doing here? I'm also creating an instance. But when I create this instance, there are two arguments that you need to pass. The first one is a string. The string tells us exactly what we need to do when we get to the database. Now, first of all, you will tell that you need to select, very important, and you use the star, and you say you select from, and you provide the name of the database, which is family members. Let me just check so that I do not make any mistakes. Oh, sorry, family information. Family information. Very good. So you select a star from family information, and then you write a comma, and then you secondly select, you provide us with the connection. You pass in the object that you have just created here, the connection. Okay, that is fine. And then what is it that we are going to do here? Where is this connection? There it is, the connection, not this one, the connection there, right? And then what must transpire from here? Is this all that we need to do? You can do it in this way, or you can do it in the second way. Let me just show you something. You can say, let me just copy this, control copy, enter, control paste, control copy, control paste. Right, you can come here. I just want to show you an example one, and you can say, when you are here, you can say, okay, that's fine. You can say the following. You can say, okay, please try to select an ID, comma, and then you can say what else comes after ID, the name. You can select the name, that is the second thing, okay. And then you can say the third one is the surname. And then I think we have age. Let me just go and check. Age and cell numbers, okay. And then you say let me just see, let me just do this. Somebody's calling for me, so let me just do this. Right, let's continue, wonderful people. So we can say, okay, select ID, name, surname, age, cell numbers, because that's all. And then we say you must select that from, and we provide the name of the database, which is family information, family information, okay. Very, very important. So that is our string, and then comma, we provide the connection, and you are done. So I'm just going to comment the second one, but we're going to test with both when we are done with this. Right, that is not all what we need to do. Now we need to make use of what we call the using, something like a loop. So we're saying, okay, use this while you go and gather the information. So we're making use of the using. So you will say, okay, using, and from here you need to instantiate what we call a reader, MySQL data reader. So you'll come here and say MySQL data reader. There it is, MySQL data reader, and you create an instance of this MySQL data reader, and I'm just going to call this a data reader equals new MySQL reader. Okay, but you're not going to do that. No, you're going to say, okay, I have this MySQL data reader calling this data reader, and you're going to equate this to a command, MySQL command no, this is equals to a command this is equals to MySQL command dot execute MySQL, there it is, even MySQL this one, MySQL command dot we want execute reader. This is exactly what we want. This is a method that accepts no arguments, and all it does is the following. Now, what are we doing here? Let me just try to explain this. Now, we have MySQL command. This is a command, it is a class. We're creating an instance, and this is equals to MySQL, and you pass in two things here. Right, the first one is a string, the second one is an object. Select from family information, and then you pass on the connection. Very good. And then we're making use of what we call the using, something like a loop. And then we have MySQL data reader, calling this data reader equals MySQL command dot execute reader. So it will read the information. Now, because there are objects that this information is associated with, we need to run a while loop when we are in this. So use this while you are doing that. Okay, use this while you are doing that. Now, so what we're going to say there is something very simple. What is the name of our data reader? It's called data reader. So I'm going to say data reader dot read. Very good. And from there, what is it that needs to transpire? So I'm going to say, okay, while data reader, there is a method there which is called read that accepts no argument. And what does it do? So how do we read this data? Now, first of all, I'm going to create a new instance of family properties. So I'm going to say family properties, and I'm just going to call this let me just see, sorry, family properties. Good. And I'm just going to call this family equals new family properties. Okay, so what am I doing here? I am trying to instantiate an object now. I'm creating a new object this time. Family properties, a family. Remember, inside of that, what is it that we have? We have all this information. So I'm trying to populate that information. So the first one, as you all know, it will be the ID. So I'm going to say ID. There it is. Jesus. And ID, you can use ID equals the reader.get int 32, because ID int 32 will be a container enough to store an ID. And remember, in C# the index starts from 0, so we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So let me just press enter. So I have ID. I know I also have a name, and I know that the name will be equals to reader data reader dot get. Now remember that one, get and a string. Okay, get a string, and it will be at position 1. Very, very important. That is the name, and I know that I have the surname. Was there no surname in there? Let me check. Name. Oh, sorry. Let me come here and say public string surname with a get and a set. Very important. Right, so let me just come here and say, all right, surname equals let me see on the database if I have that surname. Yes, so reader.get a string. Very good. And then we have the age equals, let's just wait for an autocomplete. Okay, data reader dot get string, and this will be, sorry, at position 3. Okay, sorry, an age is an int. I'm sorry. We will just get an int 32. Okay, and I think we have let me check. We have cell numbers. So we have a cell number equals data reader dot get long, or you can say int 64. I think int 64 will do just fine, and this is at position 4. I don't know if we are fine with this. Let me just close this, but we're having a problem here. So get can a double work in here? It doesn't work. Let's see what we have. Cell numbers. This is long. So how about uint? Uint, get uint 64, and it still doesn't work. So it says cannot implicitly convert type uint to long. Okay, so what we need to do here is to cast. You see, are you missing a cast? Let me just show some potential fixes. Let's just show some potential fixes, and there it is. So we just have to come here and just use casting long, and it will cast to the specified type, and this solves the problem. Now we're no longer going to say return this. No, now what we need to return is what? Are we returning the same thing? Let me just check. Yes, we're returning family properties. Family properties. We're returning an object. So when we run this, is it going to work now? Is it going to be able? But there's something that I think we have missed in this. There is something that we have missed in this. We haven't yet added the information. So before we can even go to the return, we need to add this information to an object. Very important. To what? To this. Remember, this is the information of family. You remember. So we need to do that. So when we get out of here, we just need to return this information. We need to add here. This is very, very important that we need to add that. Okay, so how am I going to do that? How am I going to do that? How am I going to add this information? That should be the question of our interest, because we obviously need to add that information of this object, and there it is. So when we come here, we can say, this is very, very important. Let me show you where this comes from. Remember, we have a list in here. We created a method and we have a list of family properties, right? So these are the information of each individual. So when we get here, we need to say, because it is a list, it has this method of called add. So family properties dot add, and what are we adding? We are adding an object with this information, and then we are returning that. Very, very important. This is very, very important. So we are adding that information, and then once we have added that information, we need to close the connection. MySQL is able to close that for us, but it is always something that we are used to say, when you have opened up a connection, please also ensure that you close the connection. You open up the connection and you close the connection, and you return the information that is needed. So as you can see, that add accepts an object, but close is a method that closes the connection and accepts no arguments. And let us try to run this and see if the information will be populated in our data grid view. When we press the button, it will invoke this method that does exactly that which is required. And if that is successful, that will be the end of the lecture, and Papa Fanzo will see you in the next tutorial. Let's just wait for this to load up. Okay, let me just pause, wait for this to load, and then we will return back. Right, so let's try to see if things will work just fine. So I press on the load data. Oh, there is an exception. Using MySQL data reader dot data reader equals this dot execute data. So it seems like there is a problem here, and then it says table family information dot family information doesn't exist. Okay, select from family information. That is the name of our database. Let me see this. Family information. So what does it mean when it says family information does not exist? Okay, let me just check what is really happening here. So we said using MySQL data reader, we call this a data reader, and this is equal to MySQL command dot execute reader. Okay, where is the problem now? Okay, so let me just come here. Let me just press stop. Why is it doing this? There it is, MySQL command. So why is this not select from family information? It says that this does not exist. Database family information. Okay, let me just check closely what is happening here. Okay, let me just type this with all caps and see what will happen. Family information. Okay, let's try and run this. Okay, let's press. Table family information dot family information does not exist. Table family information Okay, let me just look closely at this. Let me try to look at this very close. Let me try and look at this. Okay, instead of using this one, let's activate this one. Let's try to activate this one and see if it will work. Okay, let's load. Alright, we're still having this problem. Okay, I think I will need to look very close into this. Alright. Sorry, wonderful people. Let's come back here, and please let us try to run this. I want us to try and follow where exactly the error is. I think there's something that we should be very careful of. Let me just run this, and here it is. MySQL, it says that the information, the table, this does not exist. Let's try to look at call stack. Let's try to make a trace of where the error is. Family properties, line 22. Where is 22? There it is. I don't think there's any error in this. Right, and then it says button 1 underscore click object sender and so on, line 14. So let's try to check if there's no problem in line 22. Let's try and check if there's a problem in line 14. So let me just stop this and go back to line 14. Right, here I am. Let's just try to check. Here is line 14, and let's see exactly where the problem is. Let me just close this. Can I just close this, and let's run the program. Let me just click on the button, and we're still having the very same error, and it still points to line 22 and line 14. Okay, let's try to view the details. And it says that a table family information doesn't exist. How is it possible that it does not exist? Alright, let me go back here, and we have the database name equals family information and table equals family details and pose equals 0. So this is the name of the database, family information. This is what we have, and these are the details of this information. So now, where is the problem exactly here? Okay, let me copy this. Let me just copy this, and let me just press stop, and let me paste this information here. Let me just paste the information here. Okay, Let me take in the very same information and paste it here. Alright, let us try to run this. Still we have an exception. Now let us try to check now where the exception is now. Now it cannot make a connection. You see, connection.open. It doesn't work now. So meaning we were correct in what we said, family information. Okay, let me just press stop. So let me make the very same changes here. Let's try to run this once again. Let's try to run this. And now there is an exception. It doesn't exist. Okay. It seems like I need to look into this very, very carefully. Why does it say that? MySQL data reader equals this MySQL command dot execute reader. Okay, table family information. Okay, let me press stop. I'm trying to check exactly where the problem might have occurred. Okay, we made use of the using statement. This is a class, an object instance. MySQL command, there it is, dot execute reader is a method, and then we create a while loop, reader dot read. So here is the problem here. So how do I deal with this problem? Why is it saying that family information does not exist? Alright, let me try to look into this a little bit deeper. Right, wonderful people, I want us to come here. Alright, let us come here, people, and let us try to look at something here. Let me just put this here. It says select from family details, not the name of the database. It has to select from family details. So this is the change that we need to go and make. Right, so we need to say select from family details. Now I'm going to come here and change this. You need to select from family details. Very good. And I think that would help us to solve this problem. Let's just try to run this and see if it works. So let me run this, and we're still having an exception, but let's see where it is now. It is no longer in here, it is an exception somewhere else. MySQL.data whatever, invalid attempt to read when reader is closed. So it says the English, it says that the reader is closed. Is it really closed? Because we have named this MySQL reader, you remember, and we named this as data reader. There it is, data reader dot read, and it tells us this information. Okay, let me just try and close this. We said, okay, while a reader dot read, and we seem to have an exception here. Cannot read when this is closed. How is it closed? The closing is down there, but it says that this is closed. Right, let's run it for the second time and try to trace exactly what is happening also here. Let's run this. All right, let's show call stack. Okay, it seems like line 14 has a problem. Line 14. Okay, so I'm going to go to line 14. Where is line 14? There it is. Here it is. So I'm going to come back here and just remove this and run this for the second time. And let me run this for the second time and see if the error will go away. Let's try to press here. We have a problem. The reader is still closed. Right. Can I try and use the very same name as this one? We set family details because the name of the database here. This is the name of the database. Now, what might be the problem here? We have the data source is a local host, the port number, the user name, and the password is the same, and the database is a family information. And there it is, family information. Okay, if that is the error, now let me try and say family details and see if it will work. We still have an exception. Connection.open. It cannot open because that is not the name of the database. Okay, let's just go and put it back the way in which it was. So the name of the database is family information. Okay, let's run this. So why is it saying when we try to show the call stack and we have this line 14, and what is it saying there? Invalid attempt to read when reader is closed. Okay, I want to follow in this English, but I know that I will find the problem just as I did in the first one. Now, how is it possible that the reader is closed? Because we are entering inside of this using something like a while loop. We're having a while data reader dot read, there it is, and we are creating an object instance of family properties, and we are populating the information. So why is it that it says that the reader is closed? How is it possible that the reader is closed? Okay, now let me try to do something here. Let me take this one, select from we saw that this is family. Is it family details? Let me just check. Yes, family details. Family details. Okay, and we just have to change this because now the object instance there is this one. Okay, select from this. There's something that I want to test here, guys, so let me just run this and see what transpires. Okay, let's run. Okay, that's fine. The problem is the same. So this is surprising because the reader is not closed here. Okay, let's take this line, cut this line. Okay, and then let's paste it here. Right. Is it working? Yes, it is working. Sorry, let me press stop. So let's put it outside. In fact, let's do this. Let's not put it even here. Let's cut this and let's put it in here. Why? Because we said, remember, that using is some kind of a while loop. So when it is done with all this, then it should close the connection. When it closes the connection, then it will return this. Now let's try to run this and check what really transpires here. So let's see if things will work just fine. Let's try to load data. Everything is working fine. Yeshwar Vamitar. So this is the information that we have, wonderful people. Remember, this is software engineering. They can tell you many who are studying this, it takes even days sometimes trying to figure out where the problem is, and you will sleep in pain, wake up, and then you will solve this, and after a very long mental strain. So these types of problems, we encounter them every time as university graduates and third years, second years. This is the problem that we always encounter. But it was helpful to encounter these problems so that at the end of the day you learn and you understand in your coding exactly what transpires. So everything seems to be working just fine. We have all the ID, the name, the surnames. We made some of the mistakes. We were able to trace our mistakes, see where they are, rectify mistakes, and at the end of the day we have that which is necessary. So I want to thank you very much, guys. This is Papa Fanzo, the mighty Ndabezeta. Please do not forget to share, like, and subscribe for more tutorials. So this is all what I wanted to do with you, and I will see you in the next tutorial.